So, I cannot believe this. I do not believe that Arcane is written by mortal men. So, last time we did the review, some people appreciated that we had a spoiler-free section. Maybe it was people stuck at work or at school who couldn't watch the show but still wanted to see something about it. So, let's start with a quick spoiler-free review. Oh my god, how am I supposed to do this? So, episode 4 started surprisingly slower and also things were kinda chaotic. There was a lot of setups that had to be done really quickly for the second act, and there was a lot of setups from before that had to be quickly covered too. So at the beginning of the 4th episode, you had this chaos and a mesh of everything done at once. In a way, it felt like everything was getting resolutions, but also everything was getting set up at the same time, which somehow gave it the feeling of the episode starting slow. I don't know, in the past, Arcane was just way better with the pacing. However, the second half of episode 4 carried everything else. And I would give this episode a score 8 out of 10 just because of how good the second half was. But then came episode 5, and I can now say episode 5 might be my favorite episode in the entirety of Arcane. And yes, I would say it might be better than episode 3 of season 1. But that is entirely subjective because episode 5 just drops so much lore. In fact, it is lore pieces that have really high value for the people who know this universe. For everyone else, it might be fine. For me specifically, some of the reveals here were amazing. But we'll dive into that one in the spoiler section. And then, episode 6. Just what the f***, man? I would not be surprised if many people thought episode 6 of season 2 was their favorite now. There is nothing that can really be said here. There are a lot of setups and a lot of payoffs. Episode 6 is an obvious 10 out of 10, with episode 5 being 10 out of 10 for me. Maybe someone else would have put it a little bit lower. But that's pretty much the spoiler-free section, so now go off. Your life is gonna be changed after this. So now, let's dive into spoilers. So, when I said that episode 4 started with a bit of a chaotic side, I really meant it. It began with one of the weaker music videos. Like, the song itself was really good. The way it was presented, yeah, it was fine. But fine is not exactly in line with the quality of Arcane. But after that, a lot of the setups from the previous act had to have resolutions. Which is why we got the amazing first scene with Maddie. Like, if you thought that the Kate-Vi fandom would implode after the last act, this is a cataclysmic event. Then we got more resolutions around the fact that Jace, Heimerdinger and Echo are gone and now they didn't have anyone to operate the Hex Gates. And so Mbessa was trying to experiment with it. A lot of details and parallels for a separate video there. After which we got the little music video with the checkpoint, which is where Rictus just attacked a Jinx follower just to set up an example. And there, as the scene was playing, there was just a hard cut into another music video. Like, you could feel that they had to rush things a little bit, because with a little bit more time, that transition could have been a lot better. I wonder if things would have been slightly better if they just slapped in one more episode in between. Which would break the 3-episode pacing, but it is what it is. It was really all about just let's get done with all the setups so we can get to Warwick. So then we got a little introduction of Jinx just being done with being chaotic Jinx. And she now enjoyed being with Isha. And in a way, Isha just took the place of Powder in the past, and Jinx was now the older sister. This lead up into Jinx's evolution was just awesome. And I'll be honest, the fact that Isha is mute does wonders to that character. And after that, things started speeding up. We got Savika giving the speech at Vander's statue, which is where they all had a meeting. We had all the followers of the Barons. We had Jinx's rebels. We had Singe there in the crowd. And it also included the Firelights, and they all united as Zonites, which led into the awakening of Warwick. Of course, all of that led into chaos, Isha was taken away, and that started foreshadowing Jinx's future. Because slowly she started getting her mental breakdowns back. We then got the amazing scene with Savika and Jinx sneaking into the Stillwater Hold. I'll be honest, that was a really good, thrilling experience. I especially loved when known characters just walked by each other and they met each other for the first time. That one point when Mbessa and Jinx were in the same room was godly. But this of course ended up with Jinx being able to free the rebels, which showed her what it is like to have people's affection. I also love how the bridge theme was playing in the background the whole time. Anyway, then Mbessa had a very quick encounter with Warwick. We can only assume that Warwick just zoomed past her as he was heading into the hold. And then Jinx finally freed Isha, which again was such a great heartwarming scene. And the bridge theme was still playing. After which we got our first big fight, which was Jinx against Warwick. This one was a really good one, but I'll be honest, for someone who knows Warwick, he does look a little bit goofy here. Though I do believe that is on purpose. It will probably all happen in Act 3. And here I really loved the Mick Gordon Doom-styled soundtrack that was just Warwick's theme, which is when Warwick realized that Jinx is powder, and that's when we cut into episode 5. So as I mentioned, this episode is my new favorite. It starts with that one scene that was shown in all the trailers where Vi is now fighting in a pit, and surprisingly, that entire story arc didn't really mean that much. It was just Vi training with Loris, fighting and getting drunk, and her life just descended into chaos. But on the other side, Jinx is the one who became more and more sane, and she is the one who started rising as a hero. So I loved how the two characters just totally swapped positions. Caitlyn then arrives in Stillwater Hold. Yes, there are many parallels to Season 1 when she arrived there the first time. And I love how Caitlyn and Mbessa got a crossover with Singed. Those characters have a really awesome dynamic. But before that went fully through, we got to Mel, who was starting to have weird nightmares. And she also got to talk to Kino, who, spoiler alert, wasn't really Kino. Given the fact that she is dealing with the Black Rose, and LeBlanc being all about controlling characters and manipulating them, yes, it made sense that LeBlanc would be taking over Kino. Or at the very least, she would just be using his illusion. As to where she is and what's actually happening, I think that's all a setup for Act 3. What's interesting though is that here they are talking about the old world and the ancient ones, and we don't really know if that was made up by LeBlanc, or if that is actually referencing ancient Noxus and what was happening there. Of course, we do know that the Black Rose are old, and there is a lot of lore behind them, which I could talk about for years. Anyway, then we got to an interesting point, because now Jinx and Vi teamed up. And to me, at first, this was kinda strange. Because this was the first time the two could actually just talk to each other in many years. But again, because the episode didn't have a lot of time to set this up, because they are likely rushing into Act 3, they just had to say, yep, they are fine with it, they can talk to each other, there is nothing awkward happening there. To be honest, later on, the fact that these are teamed up works, but just that one transition happened way too quickly. It is such a contrast to their original reunion when she lit up the blue torch. Then again, Vi later teases that she doesn't really see Jinx as Jinx, that person is just gone, so maybe that's why she just doesn't care. Anyway, that is the point when Vi sees that Jinx now became an idol, and Vi can even see that Jinx really cares about Isha. Which is when we got back to Singed, and this was one of the moments I absolutely loved. Because Singed now joined the service of Mbessa. He would essentially supply her with powerful things, and in return, Mbessa would fund all of his research. Now, if you know anything about the lore of League of Legends, you know what this is implying. This means we are back on track with Singed making massive chemical weapons, and Noxus later using them to destroy Ionia. So seeing this alliance between Singed and Noxus happen in this show was awesome. But that's not the only Singed point that was awesome in this episode. Because right after that, Caitlyn called him Dr. Revek. Which was a name drop I was waiting for, and I didn't think we would get it. And in case you are not sure what this means that Singed is actually Oriana's father. Because Oriana's father was Corin Revek. And now it makes sense why Singed was never addressed by his name in the entirety of the series. So yes, everything Singed has done to both Rio and Warwick now, he is doing this because he's researching how to master regenerative powers. Because he wants to save his daughter, Oriana. Did this retcon some big lore parts from the past? Yes, it did. Did it also replace it with something awesome? Yes, it did. So yes, when this scene happened, I freaked out. But then the scene cuts into Mel realizing that Kino is not really Kino and it's just Black Rose shenanigans, so she tries to break out. And that is where the scene kinda hints that the Black Rose are interested in Mel because she might be the chosen of the wolf. But again, that probably gets revealed in Act 3. So then we got an awesome reunion between Vi, Jinx, and Vander. That sequence was amazing, especially when Vi just destroyed his face and then it regenerated back, because that's exactly what Singe teased in the last act. And that's when we got Vander's past. This entire scene was godly, and I love how their mother just has all of Jinx's manners. Like, before this point, I already loved this episode, but this was the point where it simply became better than episode 3 of Act 1 in season 1. And yes, I have so many details to break down here. Essentially, Vi's and Jinx's mother got pregnant. It was not with Vander as far as we know. She even name-dropped their father. But then she died on the bridge. Vander absolutely freaked out. He went against Silco, after which he essentially adopted Jinx and Vi. That is why he still calls them his daughters. So yeah, this one is gonna be fun to break apart. Anyway, then we got through all the freaky scenes around the Wild Rune. And we can see that after he smacked the rune, we're not sure if he destroyed it, but he came back a lot older. The interesting thing is, the show doesn't reveal what exactly Jace saw. But regardless, this is when Victor was started being set up as a really powerful mage. And in fact, it seems like it was Victor who freed Jace from the Wild Rune in the first place. Jace is then still determined to destroy it, and I think he is determined because of the visions he saw. If by any chance you saw that one picture of the Chibi Jace skin in TFT, that might be teasing what's really happening there. But if you haven't seen it, don't look for it, it will probably be way better for you that way. Anyway, Jace just kills Salo, which I did not expect. So yeah, then we go to episode 6, where Jace kinda low-key became evil. Then again, he probably has a righteous cause. And here, since Victor saw what happened to Salo, not only did we learn that yes, Sky is actually part of Victor now, but also it was kinda revealed that all of this magic around the Wild Rune is more celestial in nature. This is actually a big deal, because now we are talking about powers on the level of someone like Soraka or Aurelian Soul. Even though Aurelian Soul is kinda beyond all of that. Although there are some teasers that it might also be slightly voidy. Regardless, it is not just simple elemental magic which we would expect. So then the scene goes into Caitlyn being trained by Mbessa to become a proper Noxian. And given enough time, yes, I do believe Caitlyn would join Noxus. And I love how here Mbessa proposed a 4th principle for the Noxian Empire. As some of you may know, Noxus is led by 3 leaders, each representing one principle of Noxus. Vision being Swain, Might being Darius, Guile pretty much being LeBlanc. And we thought that Mbessa would join Noxus as Guile, but now she might be teasing that she wants to join Noxus as a 4th leader, one representing Sacrifice. Which might be awkward, because with 3 leaders, 2 can always vote against 1, but now you're gonna have 2-on-2 ties. Anyway, then Jinx and Vi bring Warwick into the Utopia, where Vi meets Huck. And again, we do get into a point where a little bit more time would have made wonders here. Because Vi sees Huck, she sees him healed, and she doesn't even react. Like, she's not even curious about how she got rid of the addiction and all the shimmer. So again, a little bit more time would have been better here. Then we get a cool scene where all of them meet Victor for the first time. And the conversation between Victor, Powder, and Vi is just so good. Under different circumstances, all of these could have totally been buddies. But the thing is, Victor got a different job. He was trying to look for Vander inside Warwick's core. Which is where we get more flashbacks of their family. But that entire awesome setup is interrupted by Mbessa walking onto the Utopia. And since Singe knew that Victor was his former pupil, he wanted to talk with him. So then Vi was ambushed by Caitlyn, we got an awkward reunion, which was actually a great setup for the entire Warwick incident. But again, we got more twists, and these twists were happening slightly too quickly. Like, Caitlyn was set up as a dictator in the last act. And now she's like, I don't wanna be that. And that's it. Still, the story absolutely worked, so it's not taking away from the quality that much. And yeah, at that point, all the storylines started getting paid off. We got Caitlyn trying to trick Mbessa. She even got to ambush Singed. We got Jinx and Vi finally properly teaming up. And we got Jace being surprised by voidy visions. totally not a setup for what he saw in the Wild Rune. After which we got an awesome quick battle between Jinx and Rictus. And here I just have to say, I love it when we get all of these unsuspecting fights. Like, I would have never guessed that these two would even meet each other in a fight. But of course, he was knocked down by Warwick. After which, Jace got to Victor, and he f***ed it all up. And I absolutely love that scene. Because the theories around this are just crazy. Because as far as we know, Heimerdinger and Echo are still somewhere in the Wild Rune, possibly. So maybe there is some kind of time paradoxing happening, which also makes it possible that Victor might come back after Echo figures out how to deal with time. But there is also a second possibility. There is the chance that Victor is not permanently dead. We know that his subconsciousness is somewhere in the celestial ether. And what if it's possible that what we saw at the Hex Gate was actually some kind of an egg? I mean, when Jay smacked it, it exploded into a butterfly, with butterflies getting out of cocoons, which is what the Wild Rune might be. So yes, there is the tiny chance Victor might unironically respawn. But of course then, without Victor keeping everyone under control, everyone freaks out. But also, he's not present to hold the beast inside Warwick back. So Warwick just gets fully unleashed again, and Rictus dies. And Bessa then charges in with her entire army. All hell breaks loose. And then Isha gets her godly scene, which unironically mimics what Powder did in episode 3 in season 1. That moment was just beautiful. Which also made a lot of people realize we have to wait an entire week now. But yeah, Act 2 is just amazing. And you can probably tell how amazing it is based on the fact that I thought this would be just a quick review, and it's not. Instead, I'm just rambling about all the things I liked, of which there is a lot. But that also means one more thing. The details in this act are gonna be at least 2 hours long, right?